Hey everybody, this is Carol. I want to share with you the things I thought were the most important in this week's reading. One of the things I thought was the most interesting in the book was the way the author describes leadership and the difference of the way people viewed leadership over the decades. I think if you go back and you look at literature from the different eras, that description in the book is spot on. I was struck particularly by Kellerman's argument that there's been a shift in power from leaders to the people who follow those leaders. I think our current culture demands more out of leaders, and that the leaders depend on their followers to make things happen. She pointed out that power is not inherent with leadership, that the leaders must earn it, and that there's a social contract that must be entered into between the leaders and the followers. So I think it's a good way to encourage teamwork, but it still requires that someone be a manager so that the buck still stops here. So that leads me to the next concept I thought was important, and that's the way the author differentiates between management and leadership. And I've always tended to use those words synonymously, so that was a good concept for me to learn, that leadership is working with people and management is kind of directing people to work for you. So I like the way the book pointed out that both are necessary to make a successful organization, but there is a difference there. So I thought the way this reading ties with higher education, it reminds me of something that my organization has started, and that's strategic enrollment management. And it talks about the way that everybody on campus is responsible for enrollment management. So it's not just the people in enrollment services, it's not just the directors or the deans or the chairs or the VPs, it's everybody on campus, everyone a student comes into contact with. So the people who are the groundskeepers, the people who work in the bookstore, the people who work in food service, they're all responsible for enrollment management. And I think that ties closely with what we read and the way the culture has changed, and that everybody can be a leader, and that the power doesn't necessarily rest with the people who are leaders. The power rests, I think, with the people who have the most contact with students. I talk to my staff a lot and say to them, they know more about what we need to do in here a lot of times than I do, because they're the ones who are actually seeing the students from day to day, and they're working with their problems, and they hear from them every day. So I like to get a lot of feedback from them, but I think at the end of the day, the managers have to still be responsible, because there has to be someone who the decision ultimately rests on their shoulders. But I think it's important to have staff be able to give their input, because they have a lot of good ideas, but I think they also need to be given decision-making power, and that it's the responsibility for us as directors or the chairs to give those people that power and let them make decisions for themselves without fear of being scolded by their supervisors. So I think it's kind of like a co-manager thing, or maybe like a leadership/management thing. So anyway, those are the things I learned. I look forward to hearing your feedback. Thanks.